friends! Have you been wanting to put up peel and stick wallpaper on a wall in your house? Well, you're in luck because I'm going to show you how I did just that with the wall right behind me. This is my first time using peel and stick wallpaper of any kind, so this will be my honest first-timers experience that you will be seeing. I'll be sharing all the mistakes I made and all the tips I learned along the way so that your wallpaper application process can be as smooth as possible. So what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Before I start, I know it's been a long time since I posted a video here, and to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out how YouTube fits into the grand scheme of things. But I wanted to say hello. My name is Blair, and I am a crafty dog mom, designer, and stylist for my cute and colorful lifestyle brand, Freshly Fuji. I'm here to encourage you to explore your creative side and get a little messy because we all deserve to create more joy in our lives. Let's begin. I had this plain blank wall at the landing of our staircase and wanted to give it some color and personality. I turned to Spoonflower because I knew they had thousands of designs to choose from, and I was bound to find something I liked. I fell in love with this rustic indigo design and decided to order a sample of the peel and stick wallpaper so I could see it in my space. After weeks of staring at the sample on my wall, I decided I was ready to commit and placed my order the moment there was a sale. Once the wallpaper arrived, I could begin the install process. First, remove any furniture and anything you might have hung on the walls. To get the best adhesion for your wallpaper, clean your walls. My walls were just a bit dusty, so I wiped them down with a damp microfiber cloth. Remember to clean the edges of door or window frames, corners of walls, and baseboards to prevent the wallpaper from peeling up in the future. While the wall was drying, I opened up my package from Spoonflower. Inside the box were the 4 rolls I ordered and a plastic scraper tool. Before applying the wallpaper, it's a good idea to test out the layout, especially if you order 2 different sizes of wallpaper like I did. Here my husband is on a step stool applying the top edge of the paper to where the wall meets the ceiling using some masking tape. I'm holding down the bottom portions and tacking down the sides to prevent it from sliding down. After mapping out where each piece would go, we started actually applying the paper to the walls. Starting at the top corner of the wall, we folded down a portion of the wallpaper liner. Press the wallpaper against the wall, making sure it's aligned with the ceiling and the corner. This takes a bit of patience, but I promise nailing this first piece is 100% worth your time. Then use the scraper tool in a downward motion to flatten the wallpaper and remove any bubbles. Work your way down the wall, peeling off the backing and pressing out any bubbles as you go. Once you get to the bottom of the wall, place a metal ruler right where you want to cut the wallpaper. With the ruler as a guide, use a craft knife to carefully trim away any excess wallpaper. The next section of our wall had a light switch, so I removed the cover plate before proceeding. Do the same with any light switches and outlets you might have on your wall. When we moved on to the second sheet, we realized it would be a little tricky to apply it with the door frame in the way. We decided it would be easier if the sheet was smaller, so I made some marks and took it off the wall, then marked off where I wanted to cut. You need to do this for your project. Draw on the back of the wallpaper, not on the front like I did. Luckily, the marks I made weren't too noticeable in the end. Once I finished marking up the sheet, I cut the wallpaper to the size that I needed. Then I could resume applying the wallpaper. I started by matching a few inches of the pattern on the right side before removing more of the liner and smoothing over the paper to the left. I kept moving down the wall, making sure the design on the right edge aligned with the design on the previous sheet. I was kind of nervous about matching the pattern just right, but I found that this design was very forgiving. I applied the wallpaper up until the area where the light switch was located. Then my husband used a craft knife to closely cut around the perimeter of the light switch. We used a cover plate as a guide to make sure the cut areas would be covered. Finally, we pressed down the wallpaper around the switch before reinstalling the cover plate. Now that the hard part's done, I could keep proceeding, matching up the design as I go. Sometimes trimming the wallpaper was a little tricky in the corners, so I had to use both the craft knife and the scissors for the last bit. I also had to trim the edges of the wallpaper next to the door frame. I used the same technique I used at the baseboards, using a metal ruler as a guide and a craft knife. The awkward area above my door frame proved to be a bit of a challenge. After trimming the paper to the length I needed, I had to match up the pattern along the right edge first before smoothing the rest of the sheet. This required multiple tries and a lot of patience since the left corner wanted to flap down. But once I got it in place, I could smooth down the paper and trim the edge meeting the top of the door frame. With the leftover material from the other sheets, I was able to patch together two pieces that would go in the narrow space to the left of the door frame. Because of my resourcefulness, I ended up with a whole roll of wallpaper completely untouched, perfect for my next project. Woohoo! We're on the last strip! Working in the corner was harder than I thought it would be. I had to align the top right edge with the applied wallpaper on the right with my shoulder jammed into the corner. Once the pattern was aligned, I used the craft knife to notch the area around the door frame. And just like the other pieces, I worked my way down the wall until I met the paneling. Then I trimmed off the excess wallpaper. Finally, we're near the finish line! I'm just trimming off the overhang where the wall meets the ceiling and smoothing out any lumps with the scraper. After a few weeks of having the wallpaper up, we encountered a little problem. One really hot night, I think it was like 86 in our house, we heard this really loud sound, and it turns out the top half of the wallpaper had just peeled away from the wall. And I do think that heat probably played a role in that, but also our walls are sort of textured, so that could be it too. Luckily, this wallpaper is nice and thick, so it didn't tear, and that the adhesive on the back isn't like super sticky, so it didn't like stick to itself a lot. But what we ended up doing was smoothing from the bottom up using the scraper tool. And then my husband came up with this idea to add finishing nails along the top, just to secure that top edge a little bit more. It's been a few days and the weather has been a lot milder, so I can't say if it was the heat for sure, but I will say that it seems to be holding up with the solution we came up with. I just wanted to bring this up in case you might have similar issues if you live in a hot climate. Now that I've gone through the process of applying peel and stick wallpaper, I wanted to give you guys some tips so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Tip number 1, order a sample or two before getting material for your entire project. This way you can see if the wallpaper material actually sticks to your wall and if you like the design in your space. It will save you a lot of time and money. Tip number 2, choose a forgiving wallpaper pattern. Because the design I chose was supposed to look like a mudcloth fabric, it's very imperfect and organic looking. The pattern helped to disguise any imperfections caused by the uneven wall surface, and it also helped to align things up a little bit easier. Tip number 3 is to prep your wall surface before applying. This is probably where I went wrong. I didn't think that my walls were heavily textured, but since the adhesive on the back of the wallpaper isn't super sticky, I found that it didn't stick to the wall as well. And this may have contributed to the incident that we had. Now obviously this is my first time using peel and stick wallpaper, so I haven't tried many solutions, But there are a few options that I was able to find for you. One is to kind of sand down the wall to flatten any texture. Another is to add like spackle to fill in any gaps and create a smooth surface. The last option is to hang a wall liner that your wallpaper will stick to. The right solution might depend on the texture of your walls and whether or not you're able to alter your walls, especially if you're in a rental situation. And of course, if none of those options work, you can just tack on some finishing nails like we did. Tip number 4 is to use a sharp craft knife to trim the excess wallpaper. At first, I was trying to use a dull craft knife and wondering why it wasn't cutting through the wallpaper. But as soon as I changed the blade to a brand new blade, I noticed that it was much easier to slice through the material. And this can also help to prevent any fraying that can happen when you are repeatedly trying to cut the paper. Tip number 5 is to trim the paper roughly to size before applying. This was a little tricky to do given the angles of our ceiling and the door frame, but I found that working with smaller sheets closer to the size that I needed was much easier. I would recommend adding a few extra inches to the size of the sheet that you need just for wiggle room. If you made it to the end of this video, I hope you learned something new. I know it can be a little scary stepping outside of your comfort zone, but I'm encouraging you to do it anyway. With a little practice and patience, you can create a life and home that you love. I absolutely love how this wall turned out, and I can't wait to add more decor pieces to make this space feel even more special. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. In the comments, let me know what projects you're working on and what kind of stuff you want to see from me. I hope you're doing well and taking care of yourself, and as always, happy crafting. Bye! Tip number 4 is to use a sharp craft knife, not nice.